All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome. I'm very excited for today's class. We're going to be making super delicious salmon burgers with some caramelized onions and some Parmesan zucchini slices. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start with our onions, okay? We're going to be using two types of onions. We're going to be using white onion for our burger mix, for the salmon burger, and then we're going to be using red onion for the caramelized onions, okay? If you don't have red onion or white onion, you can use red or white for both of these. I just like using red onion when I caramelize them because they're a little bit sweeter, so they caramelize a little bit better, but both types of onion totally work. I'm just going to change us to our other camera right over here, and I'm going to show you guys today how to use a mandolin, okay? If you don't have a mandolin, you can totally just use a regular knife. You could also use a spiralizer, like what we use to spiralize zucchini. All of that works. I'm going to show you guys how I use my mandolin, okay? So I'm going to bring over my red onion, all right? And I'm going to try to leave this as whole as possible, okay? So we get those rounds. So the first thing I'm going to do, remember, we have the stem end and then just the top. I'm going to cut off the tops. Today I changed the angle of my side camera to see if it shows everything a little bit better. All right, I have my garbage bowl right here. And what I'm going to do very gently, I'm just going to make a few slits down the peel so I can easily peel the onion, okay? Remember, we want to leave it in rounds. If it's too difficult, you can totally cut your onion in half, whatever works best for you. If you keep it whole, it's going to be faster to cut it. If you cut it in half, you're just going to have to do the cutting in two parts. Awesome. And then very gently, we're just going to peel off the peel or the first layer of the onion, whatever is easier. This may take a couple of minutes. But you could also just use, like your fingernail or your knife to remove it. And this is for our caramelized onions. I'm actually just going to remove that first layer of the onion to make the peeling process a little bit easier. Awesome. Make sure to leave the stem end on so it's easier to hold and to chop. Awesome. You guys know me. I always like to clean in between so we don't have anything left over. I'm just going to take this off here. Awesome. Perfect. And now I'm just going to bring my mandolin right on top of my cutting board. So the onion goes right on top of the cutting board. I'm actually going to have to use the other side like this. Perfect. Okie dokie. So my mandolin, you can choose the size of the onion that you'd like. I'm sort of using a medium size. If you don't have a mandolin, you can just use your knife. And we're just gonna cut these up, okay? Just go up and down and cut it really finely. I love mandolins because they cut every vegetable so quickly. This is gonna be done in like less than a minute. But I'm gonna stop right here just 1 second because I wanna show you guys, those that don't have a mandolin, okay? You're just basically gonna be using your knife and you wanna thinly slice it, okay? It might take you a few minutes. It totally works. So you just thinly go up and down and you see how you can just cut it right off, okay? If you don't have a mandolin, there are really cheap mandolins online. I highly recommend it. I use it for many vegetables. But again, if you don't wanna, have more tools in your kitchen, you can totally use your knife. Yes.
What setting are you on for your mandolin?
I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm using number 2. So if you don't have 1, 2, 3, and 4, I would say like the middle sort of. You don't want them to be too thin that they're gonna burn, but you don't want them to be too thick that they're not gonna caramelize.
Yeah.
Okay, that was with my mandolin. Just gonna move that over. If you guys have any questions about the mandolin, feel free to ask, or you can message me afterwards and we can talk about it. I'm a big lover of the mandolin. All right, and now over here, I'm just gonna bring over my prep baking sheet. Okay, I have a baking sheet that I lined with some foil. You can line it with parchment paper, whatever you'd like. And I know this is gonna make our hands smell a little bit like onion, so if you wanna put on gloves, you can do it. I'm just gonna break up the onion pieces, like separate them so they're not all in one clump, all right? This will give us more caramelized onions, and you can sort of just put this all around. We're gonna be cooking first the onions. While they're cooking, we're gonna prepare the burgers and prep the zucchini, and then afterwards we'll cook the zucchini. So the onions and zucchini are gonna be cooking at separate times. So you can totally use all of your baking sheet. So just spread that out. Don't worry about adding any cooking spray or oil because we're gonna add some oil to the onions right now. So they shouldn't, you don't really need to add any extra oil in the bottom. Awesome. Whew. If you're like me, your eyes are probably starting to water.
If you're not gonna fry the onions, you're gonna put them in the oven?
Yep, we're gonna put them in the oven.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I didn't know.
Yeah, this is a really fast way to caramelize your onions, and it uses much less oil. Of course, you can always caramelize them in your skillet. This is just another way. And it also makes your house smell less like onions. So that's always great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, guys. Let me just give myself a quick hand wash while you guys finish up with your onions. And the ingredients we're gonna need now are oil, salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder. So you can start bringing that over as well. And you guys know me, I really never, when I'm cooking savory foods, I barely ever measure anything, but I did add all of the measurements to the recipe. So if you do want to measure, totally measure it out. It's about like a tablespoon of oil, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then just some salt and pepper. You guys know that I never really measure salt and pepper. That's what we're gonna do now. So I'm just gonna grab, you guys know that I love my squeezy bottle. I'm just gonna squeeze a little bit of olive oil all over the onions. I'm gonna sprinkle some salt. Again, you can totally measure this if you'd like. You don't wanna make this too salty, but remember that the salt helps the onions release their liquid. So you do wanna add enough salt that you will quicken the cooking process, but don't go too overboard that your onions are gonna come out salty. All right, we're gonna crack in some fresh black pepper. Again, if you don't like it too peppery, don't add too much, whatever you want. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle some garlic powder straight from the can, well, the container. I'm not really gonna measure it too much, but you just wanna make sure you have an even amount of garlic powder to give it a lot of flavor. And now with your hands, you're just gonna toss this around, make sure all of the onions are coated with the salt, the pepper, the garlic powder, and of course the oil, because the oil will help this not stick to the pan and give it a really nice caramelized look and flavor. If you feel like it needs a little bit of more oil, totally add a little bit more. But this looks good to me. Make sure to spread them out into an even layer. You want this to caramelize. And this is gonna take about 20 to 30 minutes in the oven, but I'm gonna be putting 10-minute timers. So we're gonna put it first for 10 minutes, then give it a little look, see how they're going, give it a mix to make sure that everything is getting cooked. And then we'll give it another 10 minutes and sort of just keep our eye on it, okay? All the ovens are different, so it may take you guys a little bit longer to cook or a little bit less. You really just wanna keep an eye on it. I'm just gonna give my hands a wash one more time and put this into the oven. And how I said before, this is like a bit of a healthier way to caramelize your onions. You can, of course, always do this on your stove, but this way you use less oil, and your house doesn't end up smelling like a lot of onion. All right, guys, so this is gonna go into the oven.
400 degrees?
Yes, 400 degrees. How I said before, I'm gonna be putting my oven's preheat at 385 because it's very strong and I don't want these to burn. If I feel like after the 10 minutes they're not cooking too much, I'll bring it up to 400, but I'm just gonna start with 385 just to make sure and not accidentally burn these, okay? So I'm gonna add these in, I'll put a 10-minute timer, and then in 10 minutes, we will check them. Awesome, guys. So since we're already working with onion and our eyes are nice and watery, let's move on to our second onion, okay? So there we go. All right, so you're gonna wanna bring over your food processor. So there's two ways to basically make the onion into a grate, so it's like grated, okay? You can take out your grater, peel your onion and grate it up, but since we're already using the food processor and we don't really need to dirty more equipment, I'm gonna dice this up, put it into the food processor until it becomes like a puree, and then we're gonna take it out, put it into the bowl, and then continue. But I'm gonna take you guys step by step. So here, sorry guys, can everyone hear me? We're all good, right? Someone just gave me a call, or you can't hear me. ¿Me escuchan? Yeah, okay, cool, cool. Awesome,
Yes,
guys. All right.
we can hear you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Someone that I thought might have joined just called me. And sometimes when you guys call me, that means you can't hear me. All right, guys. Sí, cuéntame.
Una cosa, yo no voy a agregar la cebolla dentro del salmón molido porque evidentemente mi marido no come.
Okay.
O sea, voy a hacer la caramelizada para uno de los integrantes de mi casa y yo, pero para la molida no lo quiero echar. Agregaré celery, agregaré algo porque...
Okay, so te voy a responder en inglés, ¿está bien?
Okay, sí, sí,
Okay,
sí.
so she was just asking me, she's not going to be adding the onion because someone in her house does not like onion. So she's asking me if she can substitute with another ingredient. So the reason that we're going to add in grated onion into our burger is to give the burger a little bit more moisture, para que esté un poquito más, tenga más como que así saborcito. Every time I make burgers, I always add in a grated onion to make it a little bit moister. So it's not really giving a lot of flavor or that we're not adding it in to add a vegetable, it's more for moisture. So you can add other ingredients if you'd like, chop them up really finely, but if not, don't even worry about it. There's no need to substitute the onion with anything. Awesome, guys. So we have our onion. I'm just cutting off the top. We don't have to cut this fancy at all because it's gonna go into the food processor. I'm just cutting it right through the middle so I can take off the peel easily. And then we are gonna give it a rough chop to give the food processor a little bit of help, but nothing fancy. The goal is to add this into the food processor and for the food processor to do all of its job. And then we don't have to do too much. Okay, guys? Just make sure you get all that peel off. Perfect. Again, totally feel free to ask any questions. Just unmute yourself and ask away. Awesome, guys. And how I said, we don't have to cut this fancy at all. I'm actually just going to cut it into pieces, sort of into chunks, just to make it easier for the food processor and for it to cut a bit quicker. Make sure to remove the little end. Give this a rough chop, and it's going to go straight into your food processor. If you have a grater, you can also grate this, but there's really no need for that, so you don't have to dirty another appliance. Perfect. All right, so just bring over your food processor. Perfect. Just add in the onion. Sorry, guys, I have a few straight pieces of the peel, and just add that into the food processor. We're using one small onion. Alrighty, I'm gonna mute myself for just a minute while this purees, so the noise doesn't bother you guys. And we're just gonna puree our onions in our food processor. You basically just want to get it into like a nice fine puree.
Steph?
Yes.
I just realized that my grandma, she made a soup today, so she used all the zucchinis. For what are the zucchinis again?
It's just as a topping. It's like instead of eating fries with your burger, that's what we're going to be using the zucchini. So if you don't have the zucchinis, don't even worry.
Okay, okay.
Perfect.
Anyway, okay.
Awesome. All right, let's continue pureeing it. You want it to be super nice and fine. I'm actually just going to bring over a spatula and bring down the sides. So we get a nice fine puree. Perfect. All right, guys, I'm going to mute myself one more time. All right, guys, perfect. So now I'm just gonna grab the bowl where we're gonna mix all of our burger ingredients. I'm just gonna grab that and add my pureed onions right in there. So they still have a little bit of texture. They're not super pureed, but they're nice and watery, which will add a lot of moisture into our burgers. So just add that into the bowl where you're gonna actually mix all the ingredients together for the burger. No need to dirty another bowl. Perfect. Just add that in there. And the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna dice up our bell pepper, okay? Any bell pepper works. I'm gonna be using an orange bell pepper, but any of them work, all right? And keep your bowl nearby because as we chop our bell pepper, we're gonna add it into the bowl where the onions are, okay? The reason that we're gonna chop the bell pepper super finely is because we're not gonna puree it. We actually want it to be have nice chunks of it in our burger, but of course you don't want the chunks to be too big, okay? So here I have my bell pepper. I'm just gonna hold it right on top with my finger, and then I'm just gonna carve out and cut out all of the sides. This helps most of the seeds stay in the core of the pepper, just like that. I'm gonna throw that out. And then with the tip of your knife, you're just gonna very gently remove the leftover core, okay? Be careful with your fingers, you don't wanna cut yourself, but we don't want that core in any of our food. It's very tough. Just remove that. And we're gonna remove those extra seeds as well. This is why I always like to have my garbage bowl nearby. You just throw your garbage straight in there. And I'm also just gonna take out those extra seeds. I can already smell the onions in here, but not too much, not the same way you would smell it if you were sauteing it in your stove, on the stove top. Awesome, guys. Okay, I'm just gonna clean up a little bit here. And we're gonna dice our bell peppers very finely. If you're already dicing them, make sure they're super nice and fine. You don't want big pieces. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna slice all of our bell peppers, okay, into nice thin slices. The thinner you slice it right now, the smaller your dice will be in the next step, okay? So try to make this as thin as possible. It's much easier to get this thin than to get the dices small, okay? So we're just gonna cut this all into slices. And then we'll dice it. Any color of bell pepper works. I just happen to have orange. Perfect. Almost done there. And then we will begin dicing it. And as I dice, I'm just gonna put it straight into the bowl where I have the onions, right? We have our bowl over here with the pureed onions. As we dice our bell peppers, we will add it into there. All right, guys? So here, just really finely dice your bell pepper, okay? The smaller, the better, all right? And if you feel like the pieces are too big, okay, remember that trick I always show you guys? Just pile up your pieces of bell pepper, place your knife anywhere on your cutting board, your fingers right on top, and just chop right over it so the pieces get even smaller, okay? And then as you chop, just add them into the bowl with the onions. And that alarm for the 10 minutes is about to ring on my side. So as soon as we're done chopping the bell pepper, we'll check out how the onions are doing. Perfect. All right, guys, before I finish cutting this, I'm just gonna check on the bell peppers. Okay, you just wanna look at it, give them a little bit of a mix. Okay, see how they're doing. They're looking super good. I'm just giving them a little mix with a wooden spoon. I'm actually gonna turn up the heat just a little bit. All right, I'm gonna give it another 10 minutes, guys. All right, let's finish chopping up our bell peppers, adding them to the bowl with the onions, and then we're gonna move on to the salmon. If you have ground salmon, you can add the salmon straight into the bowl with the bell peppers and the onions. If you don't have ground salmon like me, I'm gonna show you how to grind it up in your food processor. I know some people told me that they weren't gonna use fish, that they're using just meat instead. So you would just add the meat into the bell peppers and the onions if you're using ground meat or ground chicken, whatever it may be. Perfect, guys. Awesome. All righty. I'm just going to give this one little clean, and we're going to bring over our salmon. Okay. All right. So I always recommend Fish Level. It's an awesome, awesome company. They bring everything already packaged just like this. So I'm going to take, sorry about my arm there. Just going to take my scissor. I'm grabbing just a piece of paper towel. I'm going to put the salmon right on top of the paper towel, because if you defrosted your salmon, it's most likely a little bit wet. So we just want the paper towel to absorb that extra liquid. Awesome. Perfect. I'm just going to grab another piece of paper towel and just pat this up like this to absorb all of that extra liquid. Perfect. Awesome. And now I'm just going to put my salmon right on my cutting board, and we're going to start dicing this up. So remember, this is going to go straight into the food processor, okay? So you can bring over your food processor. Don't worry if it has the onion. Everything's going to end up getting mixed together anyways. But basically, as I chop my salmon, it's going to go into my food processor. And once we have all of the pieces in there, then we'll start processing it, okay? And the pieces don't have to be fancy. I'm just going to cut it small to help the food processor, you know, process this and grind it up. But it doesn't have to be anything fancy. No perfect cuts are needed. You just want to cube it up just like that, okay? And I'm going to put it straight into my food processor. All right, and I'm just going to repeat this just in case. If you're using ground salmon, you already have it ground up, you can just put it straight into the bowl with the onions and the peppers that we already have in a bowl, okay? Perfect. And this technique to grind up the fish works with any fish, all right? Today we just happen to be using salmon, but if you're doing like white fish patties or something like that, that would work as well. Awesome, guys. And straight into the food processor. We're going to process this all up. Alrighty, let me just bring that over. Alrighty. Make sure to cover that really nice and tight. Perfect. I'm just going to mute myself one more time so well, actually, before that, I'm going to give my hands a wash. We don't want our hands to smell like fish this whole time. Awesome. All right, guys. So I'm going to just mute myself real quick, and I'm just going to puree this, pulse it until it's nice and ground. Okay, it will take a couple of minutes, but it's going to be super quick. Awesome, guys. So that was probably like 30 seconds or so. You can see this is nice and ground. Okay, if you have a big food processor, then you are able to add the following ingredients right into here. Okay, but my food processor isn't too big, so I'm actually going to dump my salmon into my bowl. And then in here, we will add the other ingredients to create a little bit of a puree. And then we will be ready. So I'm just going to put my ground salmon into my bowl. Be careful with your fingers, with the blade, but you do want to make sure you get all of that goodness. You see how easy it was to grind up the salmon? Super awesome. Perfect, guys. You know what? I just did a last minute change of mind. We are not gonna be using the food processor anymore. Just add your salmon into your bowl and bring over your cilantro, okay? We're gonna dice up our cilantro super finely, add it to our mixture, and then the last few ingredients. This is just gonna be a little bit easier. So I have a bunch of cilantro. We're gonna be using about a tablespoon. I actually like to use extra, so if you just wanna use a tablespoon, go for it. I'm gonna use a bit extra. I just sort of ripped off the top of our cilantro. I already pre-washed it with some water. And now you're just gonna bunch up your cilantro into a pile, just like that, okay? And then we're just gonna dice it, slice it up into really fine pieces, okay? This might take a few minutes, but if you have a small food processor, this is still not gonna be enough to really process it in the food processor, okay? So just go back and forth on top of your cilantro, and we're just gonna cut it up until it's nice and finely chopped, okay? You don't want any big pieces of cilantro unless you're into that, right? If you really like cilantro and you don't mind, biting into a big leaf, go for it. This is totally your meal. You can make it however you'd like. I, however, like it nice and finely diced. So I'm just gonna take a couple of minutes. I see most of you are still in the food processor stage. So as I chop this up, hopefully you guys can catch up. And if you have any questions or you're a little bit behind us, don't worry. Don't be shy. You can ask any question. I can repeat anything we've done so far. So this is probably about 2 tablespoons of cilantro, okay? The recipe does call for 1 tablespoon. I really just love the taste of cilantro, so I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons, but totally, do it however you prefer. Awesome, so this is really finely chopped. I'm gonna add it straight into my bowl, right? Remember that we have our bowl with the onion, with the bell pepper, and with the ground salmon. I'm gonna add that straight in there. If you don't have cilantro, you can totally use parsley as well. Awesome, guys. We're almost done with our salmon patties. We got to add a few more ingredients, give it a nice mix, and then we will be done. All right, I'm going to
What do you like better, cilantro or parsley?
Cilantro for sure.
For sure, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Specifically for this dish. I actually had a private cooking class last week, and someone asked me what the main difference between cilantro and parsley is. They're really not different, right? They're both herbs. But the main difference is that parsley is mostly found, well, back in the day, obviously not now. Now you can find every ingredient all over the world. But parsley used to be mainly found in Europe, and cilantro was mainly found in South America. So that's why you see cilantro in many and most of South American recipes, and you see parsley in a lot of French and Italian and Spanish cuisine, like Spain, not like Spanish. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. All right, guys, so far in this bowl, we have the ground salmon, the onion, the bell pepper, and the cilantro. We're just gonna add a couple of more ingredients, and then we're gonna mix this all together. We're gonna be adding some salt and pepper, of course, and then some yellow mustard, which you can totally use Dijon mustard if you prefer. I just don't love the spiciness of Dijon mustard. And we're gonna be using some Worcestershire sauce, which is very hard to pronounce, but that's what we're gonna be using. All right, we're gonna be using a half a teaspoon of the Worcestershire and the yellow mustard because they have a lot of flavor. But this is actually a new bottle, so let me just open that up. Perfect. So I will be measuring that out, but you guys know me, I love raw fish, so I will be giving this a taste before we finish and seeing if we need more ingredients, but we're gonna start with what the recipe says. Awesome, so we're gonna add a half a teaspoon of Worcestershire, and then a half a teaspoon of mustard, okay? And then the recipe calls for about a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of black pepper. I'm going to measure that out just to be safe and make sure this is nice and salted. So I added a teaspoon of salt, and we're gonna crack in some black pepper.
If
Wow.
we don't have that sauce that you just used, can we use soy sauce or other sauce?
Yes, so if you don't have Worcestershire sauce, you can use some soy sauce and a little bit of lime juice. that sort of creates the flavor of the Worcestershire. Okay, guys. So we also are going to add 1 egg into this to help everything, you know, combine together, right? Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, yeah. I don't know why it's not over there in the recipe, but I'm just gonna crack in a egg in here. I have a little bowl where I cracked in the egg. I'm just gonna give it a little mix before we add in the egg in there. And the onions have already been in the oven for 20 minutes, so we're gonna check them out real quick. Gonna give the egg a quick whisk, just to make the mixing process a little bit easier, and dump it into that bowl, okay? But before we mix that up, I'm just gonna give a check to our onions, see how they're doing. All right, these are looking good. So mine personally probably need another 10 minutes in here, okay? But they're definitely soft. They probably just need another 10 minutes to get a bit more golden brown, but they're already edible, right? They're nice and cooked. So this is totally your call. If you like them to be a little bit, if you don't want them to be too golden brown, you can take them out of the oven already. If you want them a big golden brown like me, I'm actually gonna give, first I'm gonna do a 5-minute timer, check them out, and then if it needs another 5 minutes, we'll give them more. All right, and now back to our salmon. Our hands are nice and clean, and we're just gonna give this a really nice mix. Just like that. You see, this is why you wanted your bell peppers to be nice and fine. Perfect. And if you're like me and you don't mind trying raw fish, definitely give this a little try to see if we need to adjust any seasonings, maybe a little bit more salt or a little bit more Worcestershire. Awesome. I'm just gonna give it a little try.
Did you add the salt and pepper yet or not yet?
Yes, I already added the salt and pepper.
Garlic powder, no.
No, no garlic. I mean, if you'd like, you can add a garlic powder, but I'm not adding any garlic powder. Awesome, guys. This tastes perfect for me. All right, you can give it a try or not. I'm just going to leave this on the side. You can also put it into your oven if you'd like. I'm gonna give my hands a nice mix. And now we're gonna move on to our zucchini. And while the zucchinis are afterwards, when the zucchinis are cooking, we're going to cook the patties, but also let's preheat our skillet to about medium-low heat, okay? So our skillet starts to warm up. Awesome, guys. You're gonna wanna bring over your cutting board. I'm just gonna flip it over. Perfect. And you wanna bring over your zucchinis as well. All right, this is just like a topping that you can add into your burger. You can eat it like on the side as if they were chips, whatever you'd like. And there's 2 ways that you can cut your zucchini, okay? You also just wanna bring over a bowl because we're gonna be adding the zucchinis into a bowl and a few other ingredients. So as we chop up the zucchini, you can place them in your bowl, okay? If they have any imperfections like mine do, you can just sort of chop those off, okay? All right, guys, so you can choose to do this 2 ways, okay? You can slice up the zucchinis into rounds, right? So this way, just like that, make them into rounds that would look like that. Or, which is the way that I'm gonna do it, we're gonna cut our zucchini right down the middle, okay? And then make a few cuts lengthwise, okay? So we end up with like long pieces of zucchini instead of rounds. But that's totally your call, okay? You can end up with a round like this or a long cut, which is what I'm gonna be doing, like this, okay? Both of these options work. They're gonna cook the same way in the oven. We're gonna add the same ingredients, but you can choose if you wanna cut them long like this or circular. I'm gonna go with this one, okay? So again, just cut your zucchini in half, or you can also cut them in long ways like this, completely full. Okay, totally your call. They're gonna cook the exact same way. All right, so we're just gonna cut these. Not too thin, but not too thick, about, I would say, 1/4 inch thick, because we want them to get nice and crispy, and they really don't have that much of a cooking time. They probably cook for like 5-10 minutes max. That's why you don't want them to be too thick. If they are too thick, don't worry. You're just gonna have to cook them for a little bit longer. Awesome, guys. And as I cut them, I'm just gonna put them straight into my bowl because we're gonna add the rest of the ingredients into that bowl in just a little bit. So let's just continue cutting our zucchini. Okay, and you can use this as a topping inside your burger. You can just eat them on the side as if they were like French fries. Of course, nothing can substitute a delicious French fry, but we can try. Awesome, so just add that into your bowl. Perfect, those 5 minutes are almost up in my onions. As soon as I finish cutting this, I'm gonna check out my onions, see if they need a few more minutes or not. Again, guys, every oven is different, and you might want them a little bit more brown than somebody else, or you might want them a little paler, totally your call. So you decide how much longer you want them to cook, but at least 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, then you can choose if you want to cook them for a little bit longer or not. Perfect. Awesome. We're gonna add that into this bowl. I'm gonna come right back here. I'm gonna check my onions first to see if we need anything else. Awesome, guys. Alrighty, let's take a look at our onions. Ooh. If you have glasses like me, be careful. They're gonna get all soggy. All right, these are almost to perfection. Again, I want mine a little more brown, but they're already soft and totally edible. So I'm gonna give it one last like round of 5 minutes, which will be a total of 30 minutes in the oven. And then as soon as we're done with the zucchini, we're gonna take out the onion. Okay, guys, so to the zucchini, we're gonna be adding a few ingredients. The main ingredient is Parmesan cheese, okay? And some salt, pepper, oil, and some Italian season or any dried herb, okay? I'm gonna be using oregano today, but you can use dried parsley, dried cilantro. I can't think of any dried herbs at the moment aside from those, but any of them work. I'm just gonna squeeze in a little bit of olive oil in here. Any type of olive oil works. I'm gonna give a nice pinch of salt, but don't go too crazy with the salt because we're gonna add Parmesan cheese, which has a lot of salt already. I'm actually gonna change to a bigger bowl because I wanna give it a nice mix. Just gonna add this into a bigger bowl. This is all going into the dishwasher anyway, so no problem with that. All right, so we added oil, some salt. I'm gonna add in some black pepper. Some of your dried herbs, right? I'm gonna just be using a little bit of cilantro. You guys can totally measure this. I'm sort of just playing it by ear, eyeing it out. And then some delicious Parmesan cheese, okay? We're gonna add some grated Parmesan cheese into this, mix it up, and we're gonna lay it flat in our baking dish, like on our baking sheet, and then we're gonna add a little bit more Parmesan cheese on top before baking them, okay? So you don't have to add too much Parmesan cheese right now, but you do wanna add enough to coat them. I would say about like 1/4 of a cup to a 1/2 a cup. Just like that, and now just give it a nice mix with your hands. Make sure you divide the pieces so all the pieces get nice and seasoned. And if you like to eat raw zucchini, this is a great way to eat raw zucchini. I actually like to eat, like if you want to make like a carpaccio of zucchini, you can even cut it even thinner and then season it like this and it would be delicious. Okay, so you can see that it definitely has a good amount of Parmesan cheese, but everything with extra cheese is even better. So we're gonna add more before baking it. All right, guys, I'm just gonna give my hands a quick wash, take the onions out of the oven because I'm gonna be using the same baking sheet so we don't have to wash so many of them. Awesome. And also remember, we're preheating our skillet, okay? Because as soon as we put our zucchini into the oven, we're gonna move over to our skillet and start cooking our burger. All right, so just preheat your skillet to medium-low heat, and then we'll bring up the heat right before starting to cook. All right, guys, I'm super excited to share. Yes, cuéntame.
¿Tú ya agregaste el queso? Que no
Sí,
lo vi.
ya agrega el queso. No le tienes que agregar mucho, okay? Ya, I already added the cheese. You don't have to add too much, just a little bit. And then after, right before baking it, we're gonna add a little bit more cheese on top as well, okay? Vamos a agregar un poquito más antes de meterlo al horno. All right, guys, I'm gonna bring over the...
Steph,
Yes.
me acaban de llegar los calabacines. Mi hermana fue a comprar. Tiene orégano, queso parmesano.
Sal,
¿Y qué más?
pimienta y un poquito de aceite.
Dale, dale.
Awesome,
Stephanie, la masa a mí del salmón me quedó como mojada.
No pasa nada. Muy mojada, más que esto. Tipo...
O sea, es pegostosa, pues.
Está bien, porque lo vamos a... We're going to make them into burgers y va a estar perfecto. Don't worry. Yeah. Y cualquier cosa, if you feel like your salmon burgers are too watery, that's not the case for mine. But if yours are too watery, you can always add a little bit of breadcrumbs, and that's going to absorb all of that liquid and make them more hard. All right, guys, so here is our onions. Oh my gosh, they look amazing. I'm just going to grab a little spatula. Let's just make sure we're all muted. Awesome, guys. Okay, let's continue here. So our onions look amazing. How I said, you can leave them for longer if you want them a little bit more brown. This is perfect for me. I just have a plate over here where I'm gonna just put my onions in that plate so I can use the same foil for the zucchinis, right? We're gonna get all of that liquid and deliciousness that the onions like let loose. We're gonna add that to our zucchini because we're gonna be cooking it on the same tray. Okay, just be careful with your fingers. Perfect. Awesome, guys. All right, and now you're gonna bring over your zucchini and we're gonna make one flat layer of all of the zucchini, okay? Perfect, be careful with your fingers, not to burn yourself. My fingers are already like immune to the heat, but be careful with yours. Okay, so we have our sliced zucchini. I'm just gonna lay them flat on this, okay? I'm actually going to, just to be sure, I'm gonna spray a little bit of cooking spray right on top so nothing sticks. But remember that this already has oil. So this is just me being a little precautious, but if you don't wanna add more oil, there's no need to. And now we're just gonna put these straight onto our baking sheet. It's okay if they touch, if they're next to each other. They're not gonna expand in size. You just wanna make sure that they all fit in here so you don't have to do multiple batches. If you did more than 2 zucchinis, you probably are gonna have to use at least like 2 baking sheets. I'm actually gonna try this. This looks amazing. Wow, I'm so excited. Perfect, all right. And then we're gonna sprinkle a little bit more of the Parmesan cheese right on top of this. Just like that. Amazing. Wow, this fit perfectly. Awesome. Nothing left. All of it is right there. All right, and I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit more of the Parmesan cheese right on top for some extra cheesy goodness. Okay, just a little bit of the Parmesan cheese right on top of that. Just like that. Perfect, guys. As little or as much as you like. You can obviously see that I am not measuring this. Perfect. All right, guys, so this is gonna go back into the oven for 10 minutes. Okay, and I'm also gonna turn off my camera for just a moment so I can bring you guys over to our skillet section. Okay, so this is just gonna go into the oven for 10 minutes. And while these are baking, we're gonna cook the burgers and then dinner is ready. And remember, we haven't made our patties yet. We're literally gonna make the patty and put it straight into the pan. Alrighty.
Steph, I have a question. If I
Yeah.
don't want to make like a lot of hamburgers, can I froze?
Yeah, but freeze it raw. Okay?
Okay, right. Perfect.
So you would basically just put this into a Ziploc bag and put it into the oven, into the freezer. But if you wanted to cook them, you can also cook them, let them cool completely, and then put them in the freezer. Both options work.
Thank you.
Okay? Awesome, guys. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of cooking spray. All right, remember that the salmon has a lot of the oil already, but we don't want them to stick to our pan. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of cooking spray. All right, and then with my hands, I'm just gonna grab some of our salmon mixture, make them into patties, and put them right there. Okay, so these are gonna cook for about 4 to 5 minutes on each side, depending, of course, on how thick they are. I'm actually just gonna cook 2 of these because it's just me and my husband. I'm probably gonna freeze them just how Bobby just asked us. I'm just gonna make 2. And if we're in the mood to have more, they cook very quickly, so I'll just cook them. You know, if we want a second burger, I'll cook them right before eating them. Awesome, guys. So this is just gonna cook. I have it on medium, okay? You don't wanna go too high because you don't want them to burn. It's always better to take a few more minutes to cook them than not. And actually, just to help us cook it a little bit quicker, never mind, we're just gonna cook it just like that. All right, and I'm gonna bring over my spatula, okay? The one that I was using for my onions, so I can easily just flip this over. And in the meantime, guys, while these are cooking, you can step away for a second and start cleaning your space, okay? So then the cleaning process is a little bit easier later. Because that's it, we're done, right? Our onions are ready, our zucchinis are in the oven, and the burgers are being cooked right now. You can also take this time to start prepping your toppings, right? You can slice up your tomatoes, slice up the lettuce, whatever you want to add into your burger, you can start slicing that up right now. Wow, my kitchen smells amazing. So excited. These look so good. And if you guys have any questions, totally feel free to ask right now. I'm really just putting some things away to make the cleaning process a little bit easier once we're done. And that's it. Dinner's about to be ready, guys. Super excited. And by the way, always remember that I love seeing your pictures, guys, okay? So if you take any pictures, please send them to me. If you put them up on Instagram, but your account is on private, I won't be able to see it. So if you can send them to me through the DM, through the private messaging, that would be awesome so I can see them. You can always email them to me as well. And if you know of anyone that wants to join our class, just send them our info, okay? They can email me, they can follow me on Instagram and ask me questions through there. Anyone is always welcome to join. And I see that many people joined us today. I'm assuming it's because of the time. So next week, our class is also going to be at 7 p.m. We're going to be making a delicious, delicious cani fried rice. Okay, we're going to be making the traditional fried rice, but instead of chicken or beef, we're going to be using crab sticks. So it's super yummy. And then I'm going to show you guys also how to make my delicious ginger dressing. It's very, very easy to make. So stay tuned for that. Tomorrow, you'll be receiving an email with the recording of today's class and the cooking guide for next week. That's about it. And I'm gonna give you guys a little sneak preview. Well, not preview, because I'm not gonna show you anything, but not next class, but the following class, I'm gonna be having a super special guest. Okay, I don't know, maybe some of you know or not. My dad used to have a restaurant, and one of his famous dishes was his mushroom risotto. Okay, so he's gonna be joining me in the kitchen, and I'm gonna show you guys, well, he's gonna really be showing all of us how to make his mushroom risotto. So that's gonna be in 2 weeks, but next week is also going to be amazing. We're gonna be making that cani fried rice and my delicious ginger salad. And yeah. All right, guys, so this is almost ready. I'm gonna give it just 1 more minute and then flip it over. It smells so good. I'm so excited for dinner. And that's it. I already finished cleaning up, so that's awesome. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm also just going to turn on the oven light. I'm not going to open the oven, but I'm just going to turn on the light to see how our zucchinis are doing. They're looking so good. So after the 10 minutes, I'm going to turn on the broil, and I'm going to broil them for just like 2-3 minutes. So the Parmesan cheese gets nice and gooey. I like my zucchinis a little bit on the raw side when they have that nice like crunch. But if you like them a little bit softer and well cooked, then maybe you're going to want to cook them for 15 minutes instead of 10 minutes or even 20 minutes, right? Depending on what you'd like. But I'm going to start with 10 minutes and then we'll take it from there. Awesome, guys. So these are ready to flip. It's been about 5 minutes. Looks amazing. I made one a little bit bigger for my husband, a smaller one for me. Delicious. All right, so the oven has 4 minutes left for the zucchinis, which is exactly the 4 minutes that we're going to give this on the other side. And we're almost done, guys.
Stephanie,
Sí.
¿qué tan fuerte está el fuego del
Está tipo a medio. No queremos que se queme mucho porque el salmón se puede quemar muy rápido. Entonces lo tengo a medio. Quizás demore un poquito más, un poquito menos, pero siempre trato de ir a lo seguro y estar a medio para que no se quemen, ¿ok?
Okay.
Awesome. So she was just asking me at what temperature I have the skillet. I have it at medium heat, literally right down the middle. I have a low on one side and high in the other. It's right in the middle. I just prefer to keep it safe, not turn on the heat so high so these don't burn. And of course, if you feel like they're still a little bit raw, you can always give them a longer time to cook. But once they're burned, they're burned. There's really no way back. So it's always better to take it a little bit slower and cook it on a lower heat than accidentally burn them. Awesome, guys. I'm going to see. I see some people send a chat over here. Ay, muchas gracias. I don't see who it's from, but thank you so much. All right, guys. So we're almost done. Oh, I think that's from Lily. Gracias, Lily. Thank you for joining. Okay, guys. So we have just a couple of more minutes here. If yours are ready, maybe you made your burgers a little bit smaller than mine or a little bit flatter, yours might be ready. All right, I made mine nice and thick. I want to bite into that thick, delicious burger. So I am, making sure that it's fully cooked. And we're almost done, guys. All right, there's about 1 minute left. And to be honest, I personally don't want to cook them completely now because I'm not going to have dinner yet. So I'm going to cook it all the way through and I want to wrap up the class and show you guys everything, but I will reheat them on the skillet for just a couple of minutes covered so it gets nice and heated through. And then I'm going to have dinner. So if you're not planning to have dinner right now, maybe don't cook them all the way through. And then just before having dinner, you put them here, let them cook for a couple of minutes and then you are ready to go. Awesome, guys. So I'm actually going to turn my oven up to broil. And I'm going to put like a 2-minute timer. I just want those zucchinis to get nice and crunchy. I'm actually going to bring down my burger, the heat of my skillet a little bit down. We're going to wait just 2 more minutes. Let our zucchinis get nice and crispy in the oven. Our onions are ready. And the burgers are almost ready as well. But since I have some extra burger patty, I'm actually gonna have these for lunch. So I'm just gonna put them in a small bowl so I can save this in the fridge and use them tomorrow. Only do that if you're gonna be using this tomorrow, okay? If you wanna use the mixture in a few days or next week, then definitely freeze it and then just defrost it and make your patties whenever you're ready. All right, guys, that broil has 1 more minute left. I don't wanna burn them too much. Yum. If you turn on the light of your oven and look through the window, you're going to see everything's nice and bubbly. It looks so good. I love zucchini. I'm a big, big fan of zucchini. I try to add it into so many things. It doesn't have that much flavor, so it's good in that way, but you always want to make sure to season it really nicely so you add flavor to it. But yeah, I always have zucchini in my fridge.
Thank you, Steph. I'll
You
send
are
you a
welcome.
picture when I'm
Yes,
done.
send me pictures. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Totally send me pictures.
I will.
Bye. Nice. Awesome, guys. We're almost done here. I want to show everything to everyone on the screen. Awesome. So I'm just going to put my burgers in my plate. Just like that. Make sure to turn off the heat. I'm going to take you guys back to the front for just 1 moment. And I'm going to show you guys everything, right? We have our burgers, we have our zucchini, and we have our onion. Perfect, guys. All right. We have our onion here. Here we have our burgers. You guys will choose the rest of your toppings: lettuce, tomato, pickles, mustard, mayo, ketchup, whatever you like. I'm just gonna bring over the zucchini. Wow, that smells delicious. Alrighty, guys, and that's it. So how I said, I'm not gonna eat them yet, so I will reheat them in the broil setting right before eating them. If you're about to eat them now, broil them for just a couple of more minutes so they get nice and golden brown. But that's it, guys. Dinner is ready. You're just gonna make your burger. You'll add your salmon patty. You'll add the onions, the zucchini, and the rest of your toppings, and dinner is ready.